The biggest thing is that we're all too good for our own well-being, right? We think that we could conquer the world with ourselves. Believe it or not, guys, you all came in here with your mother. One way, shape, or form, we didn't come to this world by ourselves. And it's the stigma of harden up, she'll be right. It's that Kiwi mentality, right? Harden up. When things don't go so well, hey bro, for some people, it might not be.
Welcome, you're listening to Constructing Mindsets. I'm your host, Vincent Saunders. This is the podcast that shines a good light on the construction industry. Whether you're on the tools, in the office, or supporting others behind the scenes, we are hearing from the people who are making this a better place to work and how they are doing it. Please consider subscribing or sharing this story. Thanks for joining us on this one. Let's get into the episode. Welcome to our Movember Constructing Mindsets special. We've got 3 guests with us tonight. We've got Brandon McAllister, builder and business owner, Narissa Ross, site manager and mates volunteer, Ronnie Tuano, field officer for Mates in Construction. Narissa, how are you going today?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Ronnie, how have you been this week?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Short week, eh, guys?
Yeah, gives us away when we recorded this. That's all right though.
Sorry.
No, it's all good.
I'll start again.
No, you're right. And Brandon, how are you doing? How are those lovely kids of yours?
Yeah, no, good. Hectic as usual, but getting on.
Well, yeah, once again, thanks everybody for being here. So yeah, tonight's focus is, I guess, around the idea of it actually comes from you, Brandon, when we spoke. So doing a November special focusing on mental health and construction, coming from, I guess, the idea of the Movember charity. So I guess the purpose of tonight is really to have an honest conversation about what's happening on site, what we can do and how we can look after each other. Also about what's working out there. If things are bad, sort of a few steps that maybe people can take to ensure they're on the right track or know some of the products that are out there for everybody to use or everybody to work with. So just a couple little facts, context around some of the stats from the ASB 2025 Wellbeing Survey that I'll probably reference a little bit through this recording. Construction is one of the highest industries in New Zealand for suicide. Every week, one construction worker dies by suicide, and every week 31 take time off work due to self-harm. Suicide takes more lives than road crashes, workplace accidents, and drownings combined. And our industry, 300,000 people. So the ripple effect touches every family and community around. Anyone want to say anything or have any comments around that before we start?
I could kind of touch base on that a little bit more if you want.
Yeah, thank you.
So with that well-being survey that was conducted early this year, we wanted to see what sort of our people are feeling out on site at the moment, as Narissa and Brandon kind of know and understand what the gravity of currently where our industry is sitting. We want to see what their voices is like, what sort of stresses exist upon our people. And through that, we find out, obviously, the statistic that you shared there, Vincent. It is quite a sobering statistic that we're losing one of our mates, our colleagues, to suicide 1 every 5 days. And there's struggles out there. And I think that the whole point of us getting that well-being survey out there is to really hear our people. We could talk about the statistics, those numbers, but beyond those numbers is people, lives that are affected. And I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to capture the voice of every single person in the industry as much as we can. It is the biggest survey in New Zealand recorded, 3,000 people, which is a big accomplishment. And that is massive in any sort of survey here in Aotearoa.
Thanks, Ronnie. Yeah, all right. Well, we'll just sort of move through a bit of personal check-ins. So I think, Brandon, we'll start with you. So one of the stats I read in the survey, 2 in 3 workers are worried about exhaustion or financial strain on site or at home. Sort of what pressures do you personally feel day to day, either money, long hours, juggling business or family life? Yeah, are you just able to talk to some of those or how you work through those?
Yeah. So at the moment, especially in this country, the problem we are currently having is the workload's going down. So a lot of people, especially at this point coming into Christmas, people have to take time off, and most carpenters, sparkies, plumbers are all contractors. So when we're taking time off, we're not getting paid. So if site's closed for 3 weeks, that's 3 weeks of bills you have to cover with no money coming in. And with workload going down, Builders are getting told, hey, you got to wait 2 weeks, you have to have 3 weeks off before this site opens up and that. And then, I've got kids at home, you got family, rent, bills to pay. So then what you do is when you're working longer hours to try and cover that situation. And then you just find yourself in a cycle of just working, missing out on milestones with the kids, missing out on, I can't go to the gym in the morning because I've got to get this delivery in and do this. So you're neglecting your own health, your family life and everything just to financially survive the downtimes. And then when you do finally get into the downtimes, you're still not prepared for it. So it's a pretty harsh reality.
Where are you kind of in a scale of 1 to 10 at the moment, sort of, overall in your sort of life or business life where you're sitting at the moment?
I'd probably go more of like a 3. I'm also feeling the struggles, the financial side of it, the lack of work out there as everyone else is feeling. But the problem is there's a juxtaposition between the work and the masculinity, because then obviously I can start thinking, I can't provide for my kids, I can't do this, I'm less of a man. So then I put more pressure on myself. So probably not very good right now, honestly, like most carpenters and tradesmen out there.
Yeah, well, again, really appreciate you being with us and sharing your story to, hopefully if there are other people out in your position, there are people going through the same things as you at the same time. So appreciate that, Brendan. Narissa, from a site manager's perspective, what is it like balancing deadlines, clients, and still looking after yourself or your crew at the same time?
Yeah, to be honest, I think right now, like Brandon said, is probably one of the hardest times in the construction industry. And I think at the moment, there's a lot of focus on like efficiencies and cost cutting. And so, yeah, when you're focusing on that and meeting deadlines and working to a budget, you're kind of just like hyper focused on that. And somebody like me that has been through all the training and has all the tools to be able to support people going through mental health issues. Even I'm struggling to see the science because we're just, like we're just trying to work in the environment that we're dealing with at the moment. And so I can walk past somebody and not even notice that, they're having a tough day. And that's something that I used to pride myself on. So I think it is quite difficult to balance and probably now more than ever. So I think this topic is really important.
What's one thing maybe you do or that you can share to maybe brings that balance back for you? Is there something that rebalance yourself in that situation?
I think it's just creating moments. Like it's really small gestures, like being able to have toolboxes, and when you're having a toolbox, there's just like this awkward in between moment where everyone's waiting for the site managers to show up and start talking, and then they're having to make small talk with each other, and like in those pockets of moments, it could be 1 or 2 minutes, but it kind of brings the human aspect back to the job. Like we're all here, we're all human, we all come from, like different places, and we've got families at home kind of struggling the same battle and struggling through the same battle. So it kind of makes you feel less alienated and alone. Because, yeah, I guess like these guys come to site and they are here to do a job. Most of them leave. So they're not on site for like a significant period of time. So they're not sort of building those sort of relationships and creating connections. And I think if you can foster a culture where, there's space and time to do that, then it would make a massive impact to somebody's day.
I appreciate that. And Ronnie, from Mates' view, you've seen thousands of workers take part in this wellbeing survey. What does the scale of the challenge look like for you and your team?
It was quite a challenging task because I don't know if you guys have seen the actual survey. The survey is quite lengthy. It was quite a lot of time putting into it. To put it in perspective, to give you an example, I was in Taupo with a big company. There was about 200 guys that I got to sit down, for that moment in time. And that 200 people, that's an hour of work. And you put that into perspective with costing, like what Narissa and what Brandon's talking about, the ripple effect is quite big, eh? It's massive. You're taking tools off. It's not just that hour. The restart after that, probably another half hour. Getting them down to site, another half hour. And then on top of that, it's also the challenge of communication with the team and what the message is should be. But yeah, it was quite challenging. But at the end of the day, as I said at the start, it's about hearing the people's voices. Because I could talk about what the stresses looks like from my perspective, but that's only my perspective. I think the 3000, it shows the perspective of a lot of people from many different walks of life.
Thanks, Ronnie. One particular thing that maybe comes through about, the main struggle that is out there for the teams that you speak to on site.
I think more than ever, it's the financial constraints. They still work 40 hours. Like I'm talking about, I'm looking at it in perspective of a major project. They still work 40 hours. They still can't afford rent. They can't put food on the table and having to worry about themselves. And that's what Brandon mentioned earlier. It's that constant race. You're racing towards maybe more jobs, more time at the tools, and then you're losing those milestones. Is that any good for yourself? Is that any good to the people around you? But also you hit that bump of burnout. And it becomes a ripple effect, not only to yourself, to your whānau, but to the crew that is, as you know, construction, deadlines do not move. It's a constant thing we push, and Narissa more than ever would probably understand that. Deadlines do not move. And for us to keep pushing our people, financial constraints is definitely out there. I talk to maybe thousands of people on a weekly basis, and most of my phone calls, most of my conversation on site, whether it's a fleeting conversation, it's about financial. And Brandon already spoke about it, where we are now in the industry here in New Zealand. It is quite tough out there. It's even tendering is pretty tough. Getting any sort of job is quite tough. So as the ripple effect, it's not just the boots on the ground, but also I could understand that from people's perspective in small businesses like Brandon, big companies tendering. We see in the news that major tier one companies going down and letting go of their people. The ripple effect is massive financially.
Something that like Brandon mentioned, because we did a panel speak for when they were presenting the research to the industry. And yeah, he mentioned that like a lot of the guys that have come in as apprentices maybe came in just before the boom and they haven't been in the game long enough to like have experienced this lull. And a lot of them kind of went to the peak of their career when things were moving and there was money out there. And they didn't have like the education on finances, and they sort of like ran their own businesses, and there was no guidance on, like put some stuff away for a rainy day, or this might change. Like there's this groove now, but you kind of have to think fast forward to the future and look at the next 2 or 3 years when you're running your own business. And like that was pretty cool insight, I guess, because yeah, I'm on the other side of it, but I think that's really important to mention is probably how a lot of people get themselves into a rough situation. And like with what's happening in the industry, I've had so many friends, like have to shut up shop, and a lot of people being made redundant, and like that general feeling in the air is just, it's not that good, whether you're affected or somebody that is.
Yeah, it's a good point to bring up, and hopefully we can touch on maybe some of the good things that are working and are happening out there. But yeah, it is pretty hard out there at the moment. Brandon, do you have anything to add around maybe sort of what you maybe use maybe financially to help you through some of those, some of the Christmas downturn or anything like that? Do you have any insight that maybe you could share there?
Oh, this is like the
Yeah.
first year ever I've actually got any like savings. Up until now, I just like spunk it all, or like you're buying the kids presents and all that sort of stuff, and you run out of money. Then I'd work through Christmas, and then that was the point I was saying again with like, you're losing out on time. Like when I had my firstborn, when he was born, we didn't have any money. I was just out of my apprenticeship. I'm trying to make as much money as possible, and it's when you get the Facebook reminders of a year ago, and you're like, geez, he's grown so much in a year. I've lost a year. So I've tried not to work as much, but it's just yeah. It's just now I've saved money. Actually, consciously, like, oh, Christmas is going to be hard. I need to save up. This is how much I need to get through the weeks. But yeah, up until that point, it was just work through, and a lot of tradies do work through. It's not uncommon that they'll go work up to Christmas, have Christmas Day off, Boxing Day off. They work between Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and New Year's. Then back on New Year's Day, just going through. It's just trying to be a bit more diligent with where the money's going this year. I'm a little bit safer, but it's still tighter. Like as I've got better financially, the economy's made it harder, so I'm in a similar position, to be fair. But another point I'd like to bring up as a struggle is trying to raise kids as a on site, being in construction. You'll probably recognise this, Vinny. You spend so much time on site. Like someone's got, when they're sick all the time, or they need doctor's appointments and stuff like that. I've got to be on site for 9-10 hours a day. So I miss out on all that sort of stuff. So then, that falls on my partner. Then obviously she's getting in trouble at work. Because she has to take so much time off. So, yeah, it's a bit of a struggle. The money is, and it's all financial, right? Because I'm at work for the finances. Everything links back to financial in some way or another. But yeah, it's just trying to be more diligent in order to get through the rainy days.
Yeah.
But what about
Okay.
you, Vincent? You used to be a chippy. Do you have any advice?
Do I have any advice as a builder? Let me try and think. I think personally, I probably didn't really get my act together till I was probably late 20s, to be honest. Maybe, I don't know, Brandon, you probably, maybe
I
it's
remember,
maybe
I
even
remember
later.
Bachelor Vincent.
Maybe even later than that. I don't know. Yeah, I think for me personally, I was always maybe chasing something that wasn't there for myself. Maybe chasing something that I thought I wanted, to be honest. Yeah, chasing a lifestyle because that's what people my age did. I personally don't feel like I became myself till I was probably late 20s, I would say. Yeah, that's probably through everything, through coming out of school, getting, you sort of either get pushed into a career or maybe not pushed in, but yeah, you kind of fall into a career, you kind of get stuck into that career, you do. For me, I was doing what everyone else was doing. I wasn't really following, what I wanted to do because at the time I just didn't really know. And I think it took me a little while to figure out what I wanted to do personally and where I wanted to go personally. Don't know if I've figured it out yet, but yeah, I definitely feel probably now, I'm 36 now, probably in the last sort of few years, I've really kind of found, I guess, where I thought I would want to be. But yeah, I think, life just takes you on a massive ride and yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, Narissa, but it was a great question. Thanks for asking me one.
I guess I could kind of open up a little bit on what sort of support out there is for our people. Majority of our people think that they have to do this by themselves. It's the masculinity kicks in, it's my family, I have to provide for them, it's my bills, I have to pay for it. The biggest misconception about what we do in mason construction solely is that we focus, as you all may know, that we are a suicide prevention company, but that's what we're trying to stop. Beyond those thoughts, we have stresses that exist, which is what we're talking about now. The financial issues, believe it or not, your banks actually want to help you. They've got people in place to make sure that they look after you in that sense. But also, if you ring us, we have people we tap into. If you can't provide food for your family, if you can't put a roof over your head, simple things that you need to live every single day. Although you have a 9 to 5 job, you got a full pay. There's services out there for you. All you have to do is ask. And I think that's the biggest thing that we need to maybe encourage our people to do a little bit more than ever. I know Narissa and Brandon have had their own stories on how to go about things, but like themselves, we're trying to advocate for people to speak up because we don't want to ever be in a position where we have to rescue someone. We will if we have to, but the support's out there. There are a lot of many different organizations that are willing to support our people. And most especially, we call this a silly season, right? When the back end of the year, where complacency kicks in, whether that's physically, people on site either switched off and ready to go on holiday. And then on top of that, people put gifts on that Christmas tree for their kids. It's a lot of effort, it's a lot of challenges. I'm not a parent myself, but I can only imagine what that may look like for someone like Brandon. I'm not speaking on behalf of Brandon, but it's a constant stress we're constantly thinking about. And those are some of the things that we can help you with. But again, all you have to do is ask. And it has to start with your own self. The moment you acknowledge, what that could look like for you, we'd be more than happy to help you. And I think that's what the messaging are for us here in this time of the year, most especially more than ever in our industry, is to just reach out.
Yeah, and I think when we did the research event, one of the biggest facts that they shared was, well, the highest stressor for everyone that answered that was money. And something that came out of that was ASB are pretty heavily involved with mates. And so they came up with a financial workshop free for all contractors or anyone in the construction industry that want to become more educated on how to manage their money. And so I thought that was really cool. And I think that's just goes to show that, some of the stuff that they're coming up with as a result of what they get out of these surveys is really cool. Like there is some positive stuff to come out of it. I know that we're talking about some real doom and gloom, but yeah, there is action being taken off the back of these facts. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's good to hear around that financial side because, earlier to your question about me, Narissa, like, as a builder, I had no idea what I was doing with my pay, like earlier on in my career. Yeah, early 20s, it would just, anyway. Yeah, it's not going in the bank account. Anyway. All right, so that kind of closes one of the first sections there. So next section we've got just on challenges. So in the survey, nearly 1 in 3 workers reported financial strain. We've heard financial pressure is the top issue on site and sort of through other teams in the industry. Do you see that on site when you're on site working with everyone, Brendan?
Yeah, there's a lot of people haven't got the tools they need, and then because you go look, where's your drill? Oh, it broke, but I can't afford to fix it. I was just waiting to the end of the year. I'm waiting for that tax rebate, or so on and so forth. And a lot of guys, I've actually seen over the last year guys who can't turn up to work because they can't afford fuel. And they have to wait for payday for fuel, and they're not silly guys, obviously they could probably be a bit better with their money if they could take advantage of the ASB courses that Narissa brought up. But, it's just tight times, and the dollar's not going as far. And the problem is as well with the workload going down, there's more competition, which means the wages go down, to follow it. Basic economics there. So you're earning less, trying to earn less so you can get the job, and then working God knows hours, and then obviously then it goes into the you're working ridiculous hours to try and make up that shortfall for the lower wages, and then it takes time away from your family. Guys trying to I've even seen guys do it, try and nick hours on timesheets just to try and get that extra bit of money. It's a bit rough out there financially, definitely.
Appreciate that, Brendan. And Narissa, 40% of workers reported exhaustion as a major stress in the survey. Why do you think we're so tired as an overall industry?
Physical work they're doing and long hours, like Brandon just said, obviously with uncertain times and with work being so inconsistent and not secured for a long amount of time, people are trying to make the most of when they do have work. So they want to work the most hours they can. They want to work weekends. They want to, get as much as they can while they can. So they're working, 50, 60-hour weeks when they have the opportunity to work to make the most of getting money. And it's exhausting, and it's just sort of like a domino effect. Like they work so much that they don't have time to prioritize health and well-being. And that to some people there's so many sections of that make you feel like a happy, healthy human. And so if you're not making time for your family, not making time for the things you love, and not making time to look after your body, then there's going to be negative implications to that. So yeah, I think it's really obvious why there's so many sobering statistics in our industry. It's not one that sort of supports like a good work-life balance, and it is a high-pressure job. Yeah, we've got timelines to work to, and so there's not a lot of time to just like sit around or be innovative and have a chat to your friend, and you don't go to work and sit next to the same people and have lunch together like you're out and about. So it's quite a tough industry to work in. But I think like the good thing is that we're talking about it. I think like that the whole research change event that we did was actually pretty positive, and I think the main thing, like the whole theme of it, was to ignite hope, and that was sort of how they wrapped everything up. Like, yes, we can present all these facts, but we're moving in the right direction, maybe not as quickly as we'd like to, but It all starts with talking about it, and I think that's why what we're doing is so important, because when you think like you're the only person going through this, how shit is life? But like, yeah, that's not living. So you kind of understand when there's so many people out there experiencing the same thing, that like you feel less alone. I know it doesn't make it less hard, but I mean, if you start to see that this is a big collective issue, people are going to start having to make some changes.
Yeah, and I think I don't know, I'll just maybe speak to something. I think it personally kind of is pretty amazing to call up three people, or got introduced to Ronnie, call up three people and say, hey, look, do you want to sit down for an hour? It's actually a Friday night right now, and talk about a podcast about mental health and construction. Like I guess the environment that we're in right now, yes, financially not the best, but in the space of mental health and speaking about this, if you rewind to when I was an apprentice, there wouldn't have been any discussions like this when I was around. So again, just wanted to say, the hope is out there, and for people here wanting to talk about this together to hopefully give a bit more awareness, share our story. There is hope out there, and to just to kind of keep going and keep reaching out and keep talking, because the only reason why I'm doing this podcast is because I feel like I can talk about this stuff because of people before me. So like my managers before me, my general managers before me have empowered me to have this voice and have this conversation, much potentially like Narissa as well, and Brendan and Ronnie as well. So I just want to say that anyway.
Could I just add a little bit of caveat in the conversation? It is the reality of where we sit in, unfortunately, but it's the people that are willing to help that makes it all worth it in the end. And something that we don't really highlight in our survey that I personally have seen is our international workers, abroad workers, right? They are skipping to go back home so that they could go spend that money and give that money home. I think that's something that has never really been spoken about in any sort of research, but I just want to bring that and highlight that because we won't be able to build this beautiful nation without these folks. And I think having to give that space, we translated a lot of the research. I think don't quote me on this, 9 different languages, and then that is awesome hearing their voices because, as you guys know, Narissa and Brandon, and even yourself, Vinny, our people, our international workers, they just smile. They just smile. Hey, can you pick this up for me? Yeah, yeah, I'm happy ass. Let's do it. Can you work Saturday, Sunday, even 24 hours? I'm sure they'll say yes. It's because of that final strength. But if we could take anything from them, it's the joy of the fact that they still have a job in hand. I guess in a way, we're looking at the positivity of our industry. Our industry is full of people with different personalities, different backgrounds, and we get to share that each and every single day. And I'm sure it brings a lot of smile and banter across our industry. But in terms of what we're dealing with, it's cool that we're talking about it because it's not been hidden under the carpet. And I think shining a light on it will make a whole heap of difference.
That's it for today's episode of Constructing Mindsets. Remember, every conversation is a chance to shift the culture of construction. Subscriptions and reviews are always appreciated. Until next time, take care and keep showing up with good energy. Let's keep building the kind of industry we want to be a part of.